Good evening. You're watching the news tonight, your daily roundup of all that has happened across India and the world. I'm Ishan Russell, and these are the top headlines that we're tracking right now. India hits back at Nawaz Sharif's address at the United Nations, calls Pakistan a breeding ground for terrorists. Anti-black money law yields results. The government recovers 3,770 crore rupees from 638 entities and individuals after a 3-month grace period. The BJP presents its vision document for Bihar, says the centre will stand behind the state to realise its promises. Nepal battles shortage of essential items. A protest over new constitution leave over 4,000 trucks stranded at its border. And the United Nations Human Rights Council adopts resolution to probe alleged human rights violations by Sri Lanka in the war against the LTTE. The top story this evening. India has strongly condemned Pakistan's move of raising the issue of Kashmir and ceasefire violations across the LOC at the UN. Bluntly calling Pakistan the prime sponsor of terror, India hit back at its neighbour, saying that demilitarizing Kashmir was not the answer. India rejected the Pakistan Premier's speech, accusing him of misusing the global forum to distort reality.
देखिए, आपको पता है क्रॉस बॉर्डर फायरिंग क्यों होती है। क्रॉस बॉर्डर फायरिंग इसलिए होती है कि क्रॉस बॉर्डर फायरिंग की आड़ में इन्फिल्ट्रेशन किया जा सके, और ये भी फिर आप समझ सकते हैं कि ये क्रॉस बॉर्डर फायरिंग कौन करेगा, क्योंकि इन्फिल्ट्रेशन कौन करवा रहा है।
By calling Pakistan a prime sponsor of terrorism, India has hit back strongly at Islamabad. This retort came in response to Pakistan raising the Kashmir issue at the UN. Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif had proposed a 4-point peace initiative in his UNG address. This included demilitarization of Kashmir.
1. We propose that Pakistan and India formalize and respect the 2003 understanding for a complete ceasefire on the line of control in Kashmir. For this purpose, we call for UNMOGIP's expansion to monitor the observance of the ceasefire. 2. We propose that Pakistan and India reaffirm that they will not resort to the use or the threat of use of force under any circumstances. This is a central element of the UN Charter. 3. Steps must be taken to demilitarize Kashmir. 4. Agree to an unconditional mutual withdrawal from Siachen Glacier, the world's highest battleground.
Well, our stance is well known to you. I mean, you have already seen the kind of engagements that we have had, the kind of responses we have given. So it is not something hidden. I mean, it is out there in the open what we have said. We have extended repeatedly a hand of friendship to Pakistan, but at the same time we have said that any cross-border provocations will also be responded.
Reacting to the Pak Prime Minister's remarks that Palestinians and Kashmiris were oppressed by foreign occupation, India replied to the occupier in question was Pakistan. India replied to Sharif's speech by exercising its right of reply during the general debate of 70th session of UN General Assembly. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Moving on now, the NDA government's black money drive has brought 3,770 crore rupees to its kitty. A total of 638 declarations were made during the 3-month compliance window for declaring undisclosed foreign assets. The 90-day grace period ended on Wednesday. Here are the details.
A day after the expiry of the 3-month period for defaulters to come clean on untaxed money, the government claims to have received an amount of 3,770 crore rupees. The amount has been recovered from 638 declarations made during the grace period allowed under the new anti-black money law.
About 638 people have made declarations of undisclosed assets abroad, amounting to about 3,770 crore rupees. This is over and above the 6,500 which were disclosed in the earlier accounts, which were already known to the government, where tax proceedings have been going on.
The declarants will now have to pay tax at the rate of 30% and penalty also at the rate of 30% by the 31st of December. Tough action awaits those who did not avail the benefit of the 90-day compliance window.
Whatever has come, we accept it, and now onward, we would start the action against those people who have not declared any assets and about whom the information would come to us.
जिस वक्त हमें नोटिस में आया उस वक्त से इस एक्ट पूरी फोर्स के साथ उस एसेट पे जो भी कार्रवाई है वो हम कर सकते हैं। एसेट के ऊपर टैक्स तो लगेगा 30%, उसके ऊपर 3 गुना पेनल्टी लगेगी। इसके अलावा प्रोसिक्यूशन होगा, प्रोसिक्यूशन में 10 साल तक की सजा हो सकती है।
Bringing back black money stashed abroad was a major poll promise of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Lok Sabha campaign. In fact, the Prime Minister had even said that 15 lakh rupees would be given to every citizen if illegal wealth stashed in foreign accounts was brought back. His claim has been repeatedly panned by rival parties. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
On to the elections in Bihar, where the BJP today released the NDA's vision document for Bihar. Party leaders said it provides a better alternative to the residents of the state than what the Grand Alliance leaders have offered to the state, despite ruling it for almost the past 2 decades.
Vote for the NDA and the centre will stand behind Bihar. That's what BJP leader Arun Jaitley told voters on Thursday while releasing the vision document of the alliance in the presence of party president Amit Shah and other union ministers.
ये बिहार में एक चार्टर ऑफ डेवलपमेंट है और आर्थिक दृष्टि से बिहार को पिछड़ेपन से निकालने का एक संकल्प है।
Calling the grand alliance of the RJD, JDU and Congress a three-legged race, Jaitley warned voters of anarchy and jungle raj if the rival coalition came to power.
जंगल राज के जो निर्माता निर्देशक थे वही हैं। केवल अभिनेता बदलने से उसका उस शासन का, उस गठबंधन का चरित्र बदलने वाला नहीं है।
Jaitley called the Grand Alliance a contradictory coalition where followers of differing thoughts and ideologies were coming together for political gains. BJP leaders hailed the vision document, claiming that the party won the last 3 polls on the promise of freeing the state from jungle raj and had done nothing for the state.
हमारी 11 राज्यों में सरकारें हैं, हर राज्य में बेहतर शासन प्रशासन दिया है, तो हमारे बीजेपी शासित राज्यों में जो बेहतर काम हुए हैं उसके आधार पर हम लोगों ने एक विजन डॉक्यूमेंट बनाया है और बिहार की परिस्थितियों को में उसको ढाल कर, जैसे बिहार के अंदर गरीबी बहुत ज्यादा है।
NDA's rivals dismissed the vision document, calling it an attempt to mislead the public in Bihar while diverting attention from its real objectives.
उस दस्तावेज में वादों की बौछार होगी और चुनाव के बाद अगर उन वादों को कार्यान्वित करने की बात उठे तो जुमलों की भी बौछार होगी।
सबसे पहले तो मैं मानता हूं कि ये हास्यास्पद है। जिस दल के पास, जिस विचारधारा के पास कोई विजन ना हो, वो विजन डॉक्यूमेंट लेके आए। हम तो उनका विजन जानते हैं।
The NDA's document focuses on education, jobs for youth, women empowerment and infrastructure development. Chief Minister Nitish Kumar's vision document, released a few days ago, has a 7-point agenda that includes free Wi-Fi in colleges, a student credit card scheme for loans to pursue education, and an unemployment allowance. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Let's now get to some more national news and updates nationwide. Minister of State for Home Kiran Rijiju has accused NGOs of inciting protests against industrial projects. He warned global activists and aid organizations not to work against the government. The warning follows a crackdown by the government on foreign-funded non-governmental organizations, including Greenpeace and the Ford Foundation. The Himachal Pradesh High Court has put a stay on the arrest of Chief Minister Veerbhadra Singh and his wife in connection with the disproportionate assets case. The court asked CBI to continue with the inquiry in the case. It has been directed to keep the court informed before interrogating the couple and fix the next date of hearing as the 18th of November. The Supreme Court has refused to grant interim bail to former Delhi Law Minister Somnath Bharti in a domestic violence and attempt to murder case against his wife. Bharti had sought bail till the 5th of October, alleging ill treatment by the police. His police custody has been extended by 3 days. Truck unions have moved for a nationwide indefinite strike to protest the present toll tax system. They have alleged that the present system to be corrupt and costly. The strike was called by the All India Motor Transport Congress after talks between its delegation and the government failed on Wednesday. On to news from across the border, and in Nepal, it continues to be a battle for the shortage of essential items as over 4,000 trucks from India are stranded at the border over protests. External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj met Nepal's Foreign Minister Mahendra Pandey in New York and rejected charges that India has blocked out supplies to the neighbour. India has asked the Nepalese people and political parties to resolve the crisis.
These trucks carrying essential supplies to Nepal have been stranded at the border for days now. With no end in sight to the ongoing protest over the new constitution, stocks are running out for people who depend on India for fuel, gas and other essential food items. The centre said it is helpless amid security concerns on the other side of the border.
We can only take goods up to the border. Beyond the border, it is the responsibility of the Nepalese side to ensure that there is adequate safety and security for the trucks to enter that side.
Top leaders in Nepal have accused India of violating international laws by halting cross-border trade. But India has rejected the allegations as totally baseless. Late on Wednesday, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj had a meeting with her Nepali counterpart Mahendra Pandey to discuss the crisis.
The Nepalese Foreign Minister stated categorically that Nepal considered India to be its closest neighbour and a very valued friend. India EM reciprocated the sentiment, and then there was a discussion on the current political situation in Nepal, where, as you know, some of the parties are protesting against the adoption of the constitution, and there have been ongoing protests, etc. EM outlined her perspective on the events in Nepal.
Meanwhile, Nepal has begun rationing of petroleum products to tackle the fuel crisis. Yesterday, trucks from India carrying essential goods and petroleum products started entering Nepal after being stranded for more than 5 days on the border. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
The United Nations Human Rights Council today unanimously adopted a resolution against Sri Lanka's alleged human rights violations in its war against the LTTE. Sri Lanka backed the US and UK-sponsored resolution. A Lankan judicial mechanism will undertake the investigation. It will also include Commonwealth, foreign judges, prosecutors and investigators. Lanka will have to punish those responsible for the crimes. The earlier Sri Lankan government resisted foreign investigation into the alleged war crimes by its troops. Reports suggest its military killed 40,000 civilians in the last phase of the war.
It's emphasising that integration of international actors is vital if the process is to be credible in Sri Lanka and for the rest of the world. The most important thing is to establish an institution, a court that is independent, that is guaranteed independence.
Well, time for us to take a very quick break. Lots more coming up on the other side. After the first airstrikes in Syria, Russia to hold military talks with the United States to clarify its role in anti-Islamic State operations. More on that on the other side.
The poll juggernaut rolls out in Bihar. Modi's NDA takes on Nitish's Grand Alliance. Who will win this most important election battle since 2014? Watch Verdict 2015, Monday through Saturday on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. You're watching the news tonight. Now, Russia and the United States will hold urgent military talks later tonight to discuss the anti-terror operations in Syria. US Secretary of State John Kerry and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov said both nations want to avoid conflict during their respective operations. Meanwhile, Russia launched fresh airstrikes in Syria for the second straight day. The US claims that Russian targets were in fact non-IS opponents of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad.
Days after Obama-Putin meeting on the sidelines of UNGA, US Secretary of State John Kerry and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov will meet to discuss Syria.
This meeting, as a follow-up to the discussions between the two presidents, is a very useful occasion to promote constructive and safe approaches to the situation in Syria and around it.
I relayed and reiterated the concerns that I expressed in the course of the UN Security Council meeting, which was led by Russia today. Concerns that we have, obviously, about the nature of the targets, the type of targets, and the need for clarity with respect to them. And it is one thing, obviously, to be targeting ISIL. We're concerned, obviously.
The US is concerned over Russian airstrikes in Syria. The US claims that Russian airstrikes were launched at non-IS positions. Kremlin responds saying that their targets include a list of terror groups, not just Islamic State. This even as they pounded several terror targets in Syria for the second straight day. France and Britain have backed the US statement, even as the Syrian opposition also alleged that the Russian airstrikes only killed civilians.
The Russian airstrikes has killed 36 innocent people in Hamas. We condemn by all means the Russian airstrikes against civilians, and we urged before that the Russians are intervening Syria not for fighting ISIL. They intervened to prolong the life of Bashar al-Assad and support.
Earlier during the UNGA meeting, Russia had agreed to join the US in fight against IS in Syria. However, the major point of contention was the fate of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, a Russian ally. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And let's go across to Kamar Agha. He's an international affairs expert and he joins us live. Mr. Agha, very simply, as far as Syria is concerned, I mean, we're witnessing constant bombing from, in fact, all sides now. And while there might be coordination between Russia and the US, but how do you see this panning out?
The problem, earlier we thought there was some sort of understanding emerging between the two, but gradually later, suddenly we found, there was no understanding. We thought, that some transition government will come into power. We thought, Americans have agreed and the Russian would have some role there over there. But suddenly, we saw the bombing started, Russian bombing started there. Although the Russians are saying that the objective is same, they are also targeting all the militants groups, including ISIS and others. This is what the coalition target there, But the problem is, that major differences are over President Assad. Americans now believe that, or earlier also they said the Assad must go. They will not accept Assad as a president.
Right.
Russian position is that, okay, is an ally, is an elected government, there is a parliament, and parliament has requested them to deal with the militants, so they have a genuine, cause in fighting for it. These are the differences between the two, I hope, some sort of understanding emerges between the two. That would be good because the region is, is just boiling,
Yes, in fact, I wanted to talk about the humanitarian angle as well
day
over
by
here,
day,
Mr. Agha.
militants are gaining ground.
Yeah, about the humanitarian angle, it's just quite simply the biggest humanitarian crisis the world has seen in recent times. In fact, just the migrant crisis in Europe that has been prompted by this war, and given the fact that there is indiscriminate bombing going around, there's the loss of life of civilians is too huge at this juncture, isn't it?
Yeah, that is true, but everybody is responsible for all these things, The international coalition has failed to contain, there are a number of coalition groups of countries, who are one side, part of the coalition, on the other side, they're also supporting these militants.
Right.
So this is the problem. Arabs don't have any credible joint military force to deal with it, In the absence of this, the big powers are interfering in that. Civilians are suffering, militants from the one side, the militants are there, then the government response, Syrian government response is equally tough, major, and now thousands and thousands every day they are living. Life has become difficult over there. It's a major catastrophe. I think, it's an international community should look into both the things, Ultimately, it's the responsibility of the international community to defeat militants over there. That is prime target, I think Syria is a big country, and then second thing, they have an alliance with Russia. The big powers cannot ignore Russia also, because not only there, because they have also friendly ties with Iran and Iraq. So it's a big program which they have, and they'll continue with it, it looks.
All right, but as far as the strategy itself is concerned, Mr. Aga, do you think this is a strategy of remote operations, of not giving in the ground troops, is something that could work? Has it worked effectively? Because we've seen a strategic shift in strategy as far as coalition forces are concerned, the US and its allies, of strategic targeting through drones, etc. Do you think that could work in this scenario over here, or do you think that could just exacerbate the situation?
You see, the problems are there, It's very difficult to work on that, There are a number of things. One is in these target killings or target attacks, a lot of civilian dies. There is no doubt, because there are no troops on the ground. Neither the Americans have their troops on the ground. Russians have some trainers they are not participating. I don't think they are going to participate. The other thing, is that it has become such a big crisis, such a big problem, for the whole region, and this region is very important because, for us also it is very important. This is the region where a large number of Indians are also working. 70 lakhs Indians are working, in the Gulf region. About 70% of our oil supplies comes from this region. Then a large number of, we have a huge trade with this region, and we have historical ties with this region. Look what the militants are doing, how to contain these militants. Need is, I hope, the Russia and the Western nations should come closer, should bridge their differences and find out some common grounds, a long-term plan instead of fighting among themselves, or have two different set of plans over there, one the Russian-led coalition and the other is American-led coalition. It would be good if they have some come together and I'm very optimistic in the time to come they'll come closer, because there are still negotiations are going on. And there are also, talks are going on between the two. It's not yet suspended, And there are many other things, the European pressure is there. Europe also wants a political settlement of this crisis. Even if you go for political settlement, first of all, you cannot ignore Hafiz al-Assad in that crisis, because fall of Assad would lead to major crisis. Fall of Assad means, the disintegration of the Syrian army. If the Syrian army disintegrates, the problem will further accelerate or further spread into the whole region, because this is the one army which is committed to fight against terrorism, It would be major problem not only for the Arab countries but also for Israel. So therefore I think, pressure should be built up, or they should bridge their differences and fight together.
All right, we'll have to see what develops in that meeting between Russia and the US later tonight on this particular crisis. Thank you very much, Qamar Agha, for coming in and helping us understand and give us perspective on this. Now, it took the Afghan forces 3 days to recapture the Kunduz city after Taliban militants captured it on Monday. They were held by the US military in the operation. The crisis, however, has raised questions on whether the country still needs foreign troops to tackle terrorism in 2016 as well.
Following days of intense fighting, the Afghan forces have finally retaken Kunduz from the Taliban militants on Thursday. An overnight operation launched by the Afghan forces and assisted by the US military led to the recapturing of key areas of Kunduz. According to government officials, the Taliban suffered heavy casualties in the special operation. However, fighting continues in other parts of the province where militants are still believed to be in control. Meanwhile, protests broke out in Kabul, where angry residents demonstrated against the government for its handling of the crisis in Kunduz.
مردم برابری می‌خواهند، مردم عدالت می‌خواهند، مردم یک افغانستان آزاد، آباد، شکوفا، مترقی و دموکراتیک می‌خواهند.
The fall of Kunduz also renewed calls for the need of continued foreign support to Afghan forces.
As far as I understand, the views of all those army generals and officers on the ground of resolute mission in Afghanistan, as well as our own security leadership. Security and military leadership is that maintaining a level of force beyond 2016 is necessary.
The strategically important city is a transport hub and also known as the breadbasket of the region. It was captured by the Taliban militants on Monday, dealing a huge blow to the NATO-trained Afghan military. It was also seen as an embarrassment for President Ashraf Ghani on the eve of his first anniversary in office. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Some sports now, and India will look for a winning start to the home series against South Africa when they face off in the first T20 International at Dharamsala on Friday. The match will start the 2-month-long series and mark the return of India's limited-over captain MS Dhoni after a gap of 3 months. India boasts of a strong batting lineup with opener Shikhar Dhawan back in action after recovering from an injury. South Africa will be without star pacer Dale Steyn and Morne Morkel. But the Proteas captain Faf du Plessis has put faith in the spinners to win their matches. Well, that's news tonight. Good night.